Brazilian player makes a quick dash, and as long as they score another goal, they will defend their title of the World Cup. Suddenly, Arcs appears in the center of the stadium. Accompanied by dazzling light, an invisible shock wave sweeps across the whole stadium. Under the witness of tens of thousands of fans, a group of heavily armed soldiers slowly walked out of Arcs. Immediately after that, a woman comes out of the middle of the arc. She looks around and tells the reality that human beings cannot accept. In 2051, a bloodthirsty beast named White Spikes. They come to the Earth without warning, and they multiply very fast, feeding on humans. After only 2 years, the Earth is completely reduced to ruins. And there are less than 500,000 human beings left. At the time of life and death, scientists invent the time machine. Send them back to 2021 for help. Without assistance, the only remaining human beings will perish in 11 months. This unprecedented news quickly spread to every corner of the Earth. For the sake of the racial continuation of mankind, countries all over the world abandon the existing contradictions and form as international alliance. With the help of future people, human beings have built a lot of time transport gates. A large number of soldiers are transported to the future. Against White Spikes. The service period is only 7 days. But they clearly underestimated the horrors of the intruders. Few of the first batch soldiers come back alive. Faced with a huge gap in soldiers, all countries in the world decide to recruit ordinary people to join the battle. Dan, a retired special soldier, is now a biology teacher. He is in class when he suddenly receives a message of conscription. In the conscription building, Dan puts his arm into a specific machine as required. Soon the system comes to a conclusion. He will die in 2030. Completely in line with does not affect the future timeline trend. Conditions for going to the future war. With a sharp pain, his forearm is embedded in the conveyor. After simply saying goodbye to his family, Dan enters the training camp. Most people here can't even use guns. They are supposed to be trained here for 7 days. However, the alarm sounds in the middle of the night. In the future, mankind is encountering a major crisis. The reserve team must go to reinforce at once. When everyone is assembled, the light machine is activated and a portal slowly opens. The reinforcements are instantly decomposed, turn into particles and rush to the future. Suddenly the system gives an alarm, and there is an error in the transmission location. Reinforcements actually appear at an altitude of several hundred meters. Some directly hit the ground with bad luck. Crushed to pieces, only a small number of people fall into the pool on the roof and survive. Dan looks into the distance and realizes that the future is worse than expected. This is America in 2051. Under the destruction of alien monster White Spikes. The whole city is in ruins. Captain Dan receives instructions. Go to a nearby research institute to save the research team. The soldiers cooperate with each other and arrive at the research institute smoothly. But a lot of bone spurs on the wall make Dan feel bad. He looks up at the top of the building. Sure enough, all the research teams have been killed. The commander can only change the order and bring all the research results back to the base. At this moment, the sentry sounds the alarm. White Spikes already find them, so the team have to be evacuated from the standby stairs. However, it is too late. White Spikes' defense is extremely horrible. The stomachs and throats are their only weaknesses. The 2 tails on the back can also fire bone spurs comparable to bullets. In the face of such a horrible monster, the soldiers are beaten and defeated. Seeing the teammates walking behind being dragged away, Dan decisively leaves behind until the bullets run out. White Spikes is still not dead, he can only break the fire hydrant on the side. Pick up an axe and cut it at its chin. Hold it firmly. Then teammates arrive, shoot and kill the White Spikes. They just escaped from the institute but receive a bad news again. Bombers will strike the whole city indiscriminately in 3 minutes. The good news is that they see the rescue team. However, a group of White Spikes appear on the side. Armored vehicles are torn to pieces like toys in front of them. When the bombers pass over their heads, means time is running out. To cover teammates to evacuate, wounded soldiers decide to stay without the slightest fear. Keep pulling the triggers at the monsters rushing. With White Spikes' roar, the bombers also drop high explosive bombs. In the fire all over the sky, the city is completely reduced to ruins. When Dan wakes up, he is already at a temporary base. Only 3 of his team come out alive. In the process of reporting the task, Dan is surprised to find that the colonel turns out to be his daughter Murray. And all of these are planned by Murray. They extract a toxin from the pathogen Dan's team brought back. It can kill the male white spikes. But it doesn't have any effect on females. They reproduce faster than they die. Just now, a team discover the nest of queen white spikes. Murray immediately orders to capture the queen. The queen's lair has several entrances and exits, the soldier fires flamethrowers and the queen is stuck inside. Then the assault team will enter and find a way to subdue it. But the queen is far bigger than the male. After heavy casualties, finally put it in a cage and pull out of the ground by an airplane. The queen lets out a piercing roar. A large number of white spikes coming out for food pour in like a flood. Soldiers who have no time to evacuate are instantly submerged. Dan and Murray get into an armored car and narrowly escape. In about hundreds of kilometers away, the two are rescued at the seaside. They fly over thousands of kilometers. Finally arrive in the center of the Pacific Ocean. In the last stronghold of mankind, with only 500,000 people left. All hiding here to linger. The queen keeps hitting the cage, and apparently, it has a premonition of the next tragic experience. Alien monsters invade the Earth, and humans desperately catch their queen. Put it in the research institute, and draw a tube of blood from its body every 2 hours. After thousands of tests and comparisons, they successfully refine a virus which can destroy all the white spikes who invade the Earth. Before they start to celebrate, the queen suddenly awakes. It roars, and the base radar gives an alarm. Tens of thousands of white spikes are impacting the last line of defense of mankind. A large number of armed patrol planes and soldiers open fire wildly. However, for these monsters without feelings, humans can't stop them at all. The only way to save mankind now is to start the time machine. Let Dan return to 30 years ago with the virus. 8 minutes before the portal opens. White spikes have rushed into the research institute and release their queen. The queen follows the smell and chases it outside, which is bound to tear Dan and Murray to pieces, who take it as an experiment. The two now can only gather to the soldiers, but Murray is ambushed by the queen halfway. She is seriously injured. To make matters worse, the cruise ship full of civilians falls completely. It crashes straight into the submarine platform, and the violent explosion causes the platform to collapse. All the rescue planes also fall into the sea. With the last minute left before the transmission, Murray gives the virus to Dan. Let him stop this human catastrophe. Just then, the queen finds them. And the platform also collapses in a large area. Murray is caught by the queen and falls off the high platform together. Looking at the tens of thousands of monsters below, Dan does not hesitate and then jumps off. With the end of the transmission countdown, his body is gradually decomposed and sent back to 2021. Although he brings back the virus, the military tells Dan, in the future, mankind has perished and the portal cannot be opened again. And they are not sure when white spikes land on the Earth. Now human beings can only wait for extinction. But Dan doesn't sit back and wait. He believes that the attack time from white spikes is not the landing time. Through research of the claw brought back by teammates, they find volcanic ash from 948 AD remaining on the claw. It's basically certain. White spikes landed on Earth from Russia more than 1,000 years ago. Dan tells the military what he has found. But the other party doesn't even believe that. Dan can only turn to his father James. James calls other teammates to fly the transport plane to the north of Russia. The archipelago detector shows that there are electromagnetic waves under the glacier ahead. Several people explore all the way down the glacier gap. Finally, a spaceship that has been frozen for thousands of years is found in a huge ice cave. Dan asks James and Charlie to stay outside. He takes the others into the ship. In the main control hall, they see the remains of aliens. The cargo hold of the spacecraft is full of a large number of white spikes cultured cabins. Dan thinks they are weapons for aliens to invade other planets. When the virus is injected into cultured cabins, white spikes slowly dissolve and die. The sharp screams make the alien queen awake ahead of time. It flees the ship quickly under the cover of two companions. The huge movement makes all white spikes in the spaceship awake. All the teammates cover for Dan, so he can chase the Queen. In the end, they detonate the bomb and die with the spaceship. The only 3 people survive, and Charlie now has collapsed. Dan and his father search for footprints and find the Queen on the edge of the cliff. In the face of human beings who have destroyed countless companions, the Queen rushes at them with rage and growl. Father and son cooperate tacitly, standing on both sides and firing together. Soon, the Queen's eyes are blown out. It can only shoot bone spurs indiscriminately in place. Dan takes the opportunity and stuffs a can of virus directly into its mouth. With the dissolved body, this emotionless monster also produces fear. It begins to slowly retreat, but Dan obviously wouldn't give it a chance. With the elimination of white spikes, the greatest crisis encountered by mankind is vanished.